special call. We always know we love our children, and we have so much love for everyone's children, and we really want them to be healthy and strong and learning a lot in school and just growing. And this is a serious problem that we're going to talk about tonight, and there's so much that we can do. And the agenda tonight, just to let everyone know, is the attention deficit, the ADD, ADHD, the autism, and Asperger's syndrome. Some serious situations that we really need to address, and that actually addresses those issues. And before we get our call started tonight with our famous Dr. Rouse, and we'll introduce him in just a moment, I would like to bring on someone very, very special, a leader that's actually just moved from sunny Florida up to Blakesville, or I think it's Blakesville, West Virginia, but West Virginia for sure. And she has some very important news for us tonight about our products and about our agenda tonight. And just want to double-check and make sure Sonia Smurdell is on the line with us.
I certainly am.
Great.
I'm right here.
Yes, you're loud and clear. Well, Sonia, if you will, we've got a lot of people wanting to know about this, but you've had some amazing results with your daughter. And before we bring Dr. Rouse on, I'd love for you to share your story about what's going on with you and your daughter.
I would love to, actually. My husband and I have a daughter that's now 9 years old, and she had ADHD, autism, and Asperger's syndrome all in one person. Just to let you know some symptoms of each. ADHD, those children typically can't sit still. They don't remember orders of instructions. Autism, they're uncontrollable. They can have uncontrollable fits. They won't look people in the eye. Human reaction and feelings typically don't register. And Asperger's syndrome, they typically don't mix and play well with other children, and they're very strong. Our daughter at 2 pulled our large TV off of the stand, almost onto herself 1 of 3 times. And then, so basically, when she was in preschool, about 4 years of age, we had an IEP meeting. That stands for Individual Education Program, or some people know it as special education. It was determined that Sarah had problems with cognition, understanding and recognizing others, speaking to her fine motor skills. She couldn't color and do things like other children. She had behavioral problems with other children, social problems. She didn't want to play with groups. She wanted to play alone. And her adaptive skills were also very underdeveloped. So we moved from West Virginia to sunny Florida, and things became worse because autistic people typically also do not accept change very well at all. And Sarah was held back her first year of kindergarten. We were pressured to put her on medication, which we refused based on research I had done and my personal feelings about those medications. We homeschooled her for 2.5 years, in which time we had taken her to natural doctors, therapists, chiropractors, changed her diet, and given her a multitude of vitamins. I had purchased OPC around about a year ago. I purchased some OPC from my good friend Diane Philpone, who gave me this number and asked me to listen to Dr. Rouse. One day, soon after, Sarah took 10 hours to finish a few pages of school. In frustration, I cried. I asked God to help me. And that night, Dr. Rouse was speaking about OPC Plus. The next day, I gave her 1 scoop, and it took 2 hours to do all of her schoolwork. And so we became distributors soon after. Recently, we moved back to West Virginia, and we were without our products for about 2 weeks or so, and we noticed that Sarah's behavior reverted, and it was noticeable. We got the products back, and then also bought the Is Life because it was new. We noticed even more changes that were wonderful with that. And then we got the Is Grape this past Saturday. I popped 2 in her mouth, and now she doesn't fight me before I get her OPC in her and the Aloe Red and all the other things. But she is back in regular school now. I recently went to another IEP meeting. They took her out of specialized education. She only needs a little help with reading, and her teacher said, and I'm going to quote this, "If Mrs. Smerdell did not have a meeting with me 3 days after school began, I would have never known Sarah ever had those problems." And when she said that, I was almost in tears, as I am now, because that's a huge change in such, a time span of 9 years of her life. But I'm so grateful for God's help and Dr. Rouse and his Xperia and everything that has happened. I'm so grateful.
Well, I mean, I'm so happy for you and for Sarah, and I'm so happy that Diane cared so much about you that she told you about these products. And could you tell us, before we go to Dr. Rouse, could you tell us how much that you're giving Sarah of each product?
Certainly. We are giving her one in the morning. I give her 1 scoop of OPC and Aloe Red. I give her a half a scoop of Is Life, and then I give her 2 Is Grape before all of that. I also give her a B12. Sometimes I give it to her in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, and then when she comes home from school in the afternoon, if she needs some OPC, if she's kind of restless, I give that to her as well. And once in a while, if we're having a meal that is going to be kind of a lot of carbs, I will give her a calorie-free, too.
Okay. And you were telling me, too, that on the Is Grape, because we're finding out that the Is Grape is not just an average multi, that you were telling me that you had a tough time, she was really restless and not wanting to mind early in the morning when she got up, not wanting to get up to go to school until you got the OPC in her. But as soon as you gave that Is Grape, within a short period of time, that just stopped?
Oh, yes. I literally had to pour water on her head to get her out of bed one day. I'm not kidding you. That's how bad it was before I gave her OPC, and then once her OPC Aloe Red, and then when we put the Is Life in there, it was just life. And it was... Everything is wonderful now that we have the Is Grape. I pop a couple in her mouth as she's getting out of bed, and then in a couple of minutes she's not cranky.
Oh, that's great.
Which is wonderful.
Well, we are so excited for you and Sarah, and we appreciate you being on here and sharing this. And I know that your testimony is going to help a lot of people, not only on this call, but they're going to tell other people your story to get them to try those products, because it is amazing how many children are drugged out there. It's just saddening. But anyway, we appreciate you so much, Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and without further ado, if you're new on the call and you have not met Dr. Rouse, Dr. Rouse is our head medical advisor here at Is Xperia. He is a registered pharmacist, a doctor of natural medicine, and also an ordained minister. And we just love Dr. Rouse and I love him because when I hear him talk, I learn something new every time he talks, but I can understand what he's saying, and I go, okay, he's a doctor, but this makes sense to me. So without further ado, Dr. Rouse, are you with us?
Dr. Rouse is in the house. Wow. Thank God for answered prayer and how God used that in that mother's life. And we'll continue to pray for that child. As you can see on the leaderboard there, we're going to be talking about some conditions. They're not diseases at all. They're actually disorders. They have so many parameters and so many different ill effects. People that can't concentrate, they give them that label attention deficit. People that can't sit still and they seem to have ants in their pants, they call that hyperactivity. And then we're seeing a new rise in particularly male patients, little boys, and it seems to have a direct correlation between a toxicity effect in the brain called autism, the autism spectrum disorder, and goodness gracious, one mother a while back found out that when her child was told to have routine vaccinations, they actually gave that kid a whole slew of vaccinations in one day, just pop, 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 pop. And that just overtaxed the child, and with 1 month, their little boy became autistic and full-scale autism. When their second child was born, then the mother, was very reluctant to even consider vaccinations, and she just begged the pediatrician to let it be. But he said it was pure coincidence, so giving in, they pop, 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 and a multitude of vaccinations, and now she has 2 autistic children. And so when they look at it, there are groups of mothers all across the world and strong support in America. And some of their placards, their signs that they carry out there when they protest these government interventions. I saw one that said that some of these vaccinations to these mothers, in their particular opinion, was that this was a government-approved form of child abuse. And when they look at it from a overall perspective, now we're talking specifically here about autism, and how some of the government, some of the medical says no connection whatsoever to vaccinations. But let me remind physicians that in the great state of Illinois, up there in the metropolitan area of Chicago, they have been doing some very unique medical studies. And Jack, I don't know whether you know this or not, but there are 2 things that have come out common with this. In rural Lancaster, Amish children, they don't get vaccinated, and literally thousands of Amish children in rural Lancaster have never been vaccinated, and guess what? Not one single solitary case of autism. And we're talking 35,000 kids over the years, and not one single case of autism. And yet, when those Home First Health Service babies were being studied, it just points to something that has to be there. And tonight we're going to simply talk about the whole plethora. There are many students that have attention deficit, and let me also throw in there, while I'm even mentioning tonight's talk, it's not just for children, because we know that there's an estimated 5 million adults who definitely have their lives tragically altered by severe concentration problems. By the time they're tying their shoes or putting on their shoes in the morning, they may have already thought about 5 things they're going to accomplish today. By the end of the day, most of them have made such a discombobulated mess that their attention deficit in adulthood leads to a progression of no task getting accomplished. But going back to it, on the next slide, I want to give you just a quick overview of the fact that we're looking at some of the agendas that are on our docket, and questions that should be asked. Does that child make too many careless mistakes with schoolwork or other activities? Does that child have difficulty paying attention to particular tasks or even play activities? Or does that child not like to listen even when you're eye to eye and speaking directly to them? Does that child fail to follow through on almost all instructions? They rarely finish their homework, and they certainly are not going to do the chores or the other tasks that you assign them. And those with hyperactivity, they know just how to fidget with their hands and their feet. They'll squirm forever in their seat. And often you find some of them just seem like they've got a motor in first degree. So there are symptomatics, but I do, as you see at the top of that slide, ADD is treatable and beatable, and we've got some good news for everybody tonight. And as we go to the basic premise, what we're finding in medicine is that magnesium deficiency, now this is real important, magnesium deficiency is linked, is a direct brain link to ADD, ADHD, autistic children, and Asperger's. All those have a direct link to a low magnesium power. And we just heard a mother share with the power behind an OPC and Aloe Red and Is Grape, and looking at knowing the pharmacology of why we put what we put in those products. Those are magnesium-rich products. And one of the, in the Is Grape, the thiamine that is in our product is very unique in that children, when they become B1 deficient, and it's very common with their Kit Kat, Mountain Dew diets, when a child is B1 deficient, they're going to be more irritable. They're going to bite at you. They're going to be more sassy. They're going to be meaner. And unfortunately, B1 deficiency is many times never addressed. They'd rather give the child a stronger psychedelic drug. They'd rather put them on some kind of mild tranquilization. And in truth, just giving them like Is Grape, that's loaded with the B spectrum, but B1 is in there. I heard the mother say that child, given the Is Grape in the morning in the bed, comes out of the bed much more docile, much sweeter disposition. And you'll find, I have had parents come in and just thank me wholeheartedly for giving them back their teenage child, saying, I never knew that child could be so sweet, and it was just simply a B1 deficiency. But going back to magnesium, it is in the Is Grape, the OPC, the Aloe Red, the Is Life, and magnesium is the principal key to controlling all of this. It relaxes the mind, it calms the nervous system, and without magnesium, grown-ups as well as children, they're going to be more irritable, more moody, and unfortunately, all aspects of depression have a direct link to magnesium. So first you have to go to the root cause. As I've given illustrations before, if your sink is flooding over with water, the cork is in the sink and the water is flooding over the sink, you don't need more mops. You don't need more drugs, more mops to mop up the floor. Somebody needs to turn the water off at the spigot. And that's what the magnesium would be. It would be going to the root and cause and turning off the water at the spigot. Magnesium is essential to irritability, moodiness, depression, focus, etc. And we find that the reason it is because magnesium is essential to regulating blood sugar control. Hyperactivity children are always in a blood sugar catastrophe. Their little insulin pump is so fast, their little hypoglycemia is so low, that it's no wonder they're not nervous 24/7. And the reason for massive amounts of magnesium deficiency, stress. Stress just wipes out a child's magnesium. And then you add poor nutrition on top of that. And when I mean poor nutrition, I'm talking about processed foods, refined sugars, all those food additives. You put all of that into a child's mechanism and then put them out there into the world of stress. And you say, well, my kid's not stressed. Believe me, some of the pictures that they watch, some of the pictures that they look at, those mean-looking critters, that stress anybody. And some kids are just stressed about the homework, stressed about school, stressed about all little things add up to major things. And stress wipes out magnesium. The standard medical protocol, we come right along, and I've always said, look, I've never met a child who is Ritalin deficient. It's a default in nutritional habits, but unfortunately the standard medical protocol is, look, mama, look, daddy, your child has ADD, or your child has ADHD, or your child is autistic, or your child has Asperger's syndrome. Then what they'll come in and they'll say, you just need to accept it, accept the condition. and then they'll hastily write a little prescription over there for medications, pharmaceutical drugs. They'll give you a few vague lifestyle suggestions on the way out, and the next thing you know, we're in trouble here. When a child is having to take Ritalin or Concerta, methylphenidate, you know, those drugs are implicated in hallucinations, suicidal thoughts, psychotic behaviors, aggression. And I know many children who have heart problems today, high blood pressure today, heart irregular arrhythmias today, racing heartbeats because of the methylphenidate that they took as a child. Then they came along and Statera came out, and they said, look, we got a non-stimulating drug. But you know what? You look and see what the FDA has to say even about Statera. It says there's a possible liver damage problem associated with that particular drug. So sometimes looking at the drugs, it's not the first alternative, and certainly it probably is not even the second alternative. What's happening is in the brain, glucose. The glucose is the principal brain fuel. It's designed by God to be burned up with the fat. It's like stoking the furnace. Glucose plus fat will burn and give you adenosine triphosphate. That's bioenergy. That's the best energy the brain could ever have, ATP. But unfortunately, because of magnesium deficiency, irregular glucose balancing, the glucose does not get burned up with the fat, and therefore the child is very deficient in adenosine triphosphate. Hence hyperactivity, hence concentration problems, hence the brain just doesn't function well. And then we send our kids off to school with not so good a breakfast. Most of the time we choose everything that's carbohydrate with plenty of simple sugars. Every bit of the fiber has been refined or defibered. And I'm talking about the breakfast of champions, the cereal with sugar, the toast with jelly, the muffins, the waffles, the pancakes with syrup, a quick donut here and a pastry there and a Pop-Tart over there, and all that. And sometimes we sugar-lace the milk and sugar-lace the coffee and sugar-lace the juice and the beverage. And then comes lunchtime, and the school gives them more bread, more pasta, more potato chips. They come home at night, we give them more pizza, more potatoes, more bread, more sugary desserts, and in the meantime, we're washing it down with sugar-rich soda pop full of phosphoric acid. The phosphates degenerate magnesium in a child. So we're killing their magnesium potential. We're promoting hyperinsulinism. We're causing the whole spectrum of the hypoglycemia to show up. And when a child is hypoglycemic, they'll become irritable, they'll become forgetful, they'll become mentally confused, they'll become indecisive, they'll show incoordination, they'll have a lack of concentration. Hypoglycemia is irritability, forgetfulness, mental confusion, indecisiveness, incoordination, and lack of concentration. So it's no surprise to me. It's no surprise to me that our kids need excellent nutrition in order to enjoy optimal brain function. My wife, Janice, and I, we flew up to British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia, recently to actually meet two of the great physicians in the world who have a medical research center called the Canadian Center for Nutritional Medicine. And Dr. Michael R. Lyon, Dr. Lyon, Lyon, he's doing the research on ADD, ADHD, autism, Asperger. So I flew up there to meet Dr. Michael Murray and Dr. Lyon to see what their cutting-edge research was all about. And we find in their research that these kids that are following the standard American diet are becoming very hypersensitive to foods. They have what we call food allergies. Their body is totally loaded with toxic influences. They are so increased with chemicalization that their brain is just having a conniption fit. And according to Dr. Michael Lyon, the brain is mostly fat. That means essential fatty acids. That means that we need stuff like DHA, the real stuff. And in our Is Grape product, we're using a supercharged flaxseed, ground up flaxseed that is loaded with the essential fatty acids, the DHA. So it makes every student a better student. And there's no doubt that the brain of every child is crying out for protein. Every child is not getting sufficient amounts of protein. Hopefully soon in the Is-Xperia family, when we introduce our new protein product, we're looking in research now at the world's best proteins like the golden pea, things like that are going to give us, grown-ups, as well as children, the perfect protein balance. But as we look to it, we heard a moment ago the mother say, I give my child B12. Well, did you know that B12 impacts cognitive performances? And we know that when a child is low on all of the Bs, the folate, the B6, the B1, their body's also going to be limited in iron, zinc, calcium, trace elements, and every single one of those nutritional qualities are linked to brain function in kids. So here's a mother who has done the right thing. OPC is by far one of the world's most concentrated nutritional products. It's complete. Bringing in Is Grape brings in the conglomeration of the B vitamins with the right amount of iron. So with that, we're linking back and we're beginning to work functionally by giving the brain the necessary fuel. Now, the other major problem in children is that almost every child with autism, Asperger's, attention deficit, or hyperactivity, they also need healing, major healing in the gut. And there's a direct relationship between the gut and the brain. The gut is so permeable in these kids. We call it leaky gut syndrome. And because of that, they're leaking toxins, leaking poison into the blood. And when we look at their stool, we realize that these children are very poor in gut immune function. Their ecology of their gut is out of whack. They have way too many parasites, not enough friendly bacteria, way too many yeast products. And thus we bring in Aloe Red to the rescue. When we mix the Aloe Red and the OPC, we are now working on the leaky gut syndrome, the immune function, the ecology of the whole gut system, but at the same time we're providing supportive nutrition that works on the brain. The key, mothers and dads, is keeping your child off of the blood sugar roller coaster. We have to make their bodies more proficient. We need to improve their efficiency of detoxification. And it's absolutely astounding to see a world of calm that comes over children when they're given the proper brain nutrition. And when we go back to it and we label it down and we look at it medically, did you know that now we're finding a direct link between autism and vitamin D3 deficiency? The Vitamin D Council recently has shown us that children must get in 35 units of D3 every day per body pound. So whatever your child weighs in pounds, multiply that by 35. 35 times their body weight is the minimum amount of D3 required to detoxify. And in an autistic child, that ratio is imperative, because unless they meet that standard, like in Is Life is a perfect nutrition for an autistic child, because whenever they meet that standard, when we give them the OPC, the Is Grape, the Aloe Red, we now have a protocol that is designed to give us every student a better student, a longer attention span, an enhanced mental focus and concentration, an improved memory and comprehension, and optimal learning. That's our goal. And our goal tonight is to help every child to be a better student. But we as parents, we've got to take the initiative. Magnesium has to come back in there. Detoxification has to be a part of the system. And we're going to watch what they eat, because those things that are processed, loaded with sugar, are not helping us one iota. But I heard one parent tonight, and I have looked at the Home First Health Services out of metropolitan Chicago, and we got 35,000 kids tonight that are healthy without vaccinations because they are on a regimented, good, wholesome, quality diet. And we at Xperia, just in OPC alone, could win the war on ADD, ADHD, hyperactivity problems, autism, as well as Asperger. So to God be the glory to that mama, and thank you for her testimony.
Thank you, Dr. Rasmussen. We've got a lot of questions. We've gone over a little, but this is a very, very important call, so I think everyone would understand going over a little more, and because there are a couple very, very important questions that came in. I guess the number one would be your opinion on which products to start with in order, and then as far as ages, what dose would be your opinion to give those children?
Okay. Back on the last slide there, they're in the order of which to give. OPC first. ADDI is great. On the age-wise, let's start with the mother in the womb. And when she's carrying that baby, she starts good, wholesome. And I promise you, Mama is going to be absolutely amazed at the healthiness of the child. Children can start as soon as they're able to swallow, any kind of food, any kind of beverage. So, minutia amounts like 1/8 of a scoop on the tiniest little infant, based on right on up. We heard a mother tonight that was giving a scoop of each and a half scoop of his life. So I think that each parent, just like how much portion are you going to give them of the oatmeal or the peas or the taters, just base it just like it is real food. It is nothing but real food, and it is not a drug. It has no drug toxicity whatsoever and will do no harm.
And on the Is Life, dealing with the D3, we know we have 2,500 units in each scoop, and you were saying they needed 35 units per pound, so we need to calculate that with the poundage of our children.
And even a half a scoop, which is going to be up over 1,000.
Okay.
See what you just said. Half a scoop would carry you over 1,000, which we're finding now in every child that's ADD, ADHD, autistic, or Asperger, they can easily tolerate the 1 in 2,000 units. So there's no toxicity there whatsoever. It's a safe, wholesome thing to do. And these kids will be much healthier with the flu season, the pneumonia season, and the cold season coming about.
And you were saying, too, that I guess the first one to start with, to reiterate on that, is the OPC Plus, and
yes,
that they need to start with it first.
If you had to choose one, make it OPC Plus. We've been using OPC Plus now for well over 25 years in ADD, ADHD, and some of the physicians really are waking up. And when I flew to British Columbia, that was one of the power charges, was that OPC is still up there as a principal player in attention deficit.
And we had a few questions about the D3 in adults. Now, I give my daughter 2 scoops. I make sure she takes 2 scoops, which is she's 110 pounds, but that gives her 5,000 units, which I've read a lot about, that's really a strong starting point with a high school student, college student, adult. Now, I take 10,000, sometimes 15,000 units since I went through prostate cancer treatment. Fortunately, got it all, but I just want to make sure that if there's one little cell that just got away, and 10 years down the road that one little cell would like to grow, I've done a lot of study about, and you've told me about D3 with our immune system, and the Is Life with the fucoidan and our immune system, to make sure that I have a good amount, making sure my immune system is extremely strong.
go all the way, and as well as I know your daughter Candace, and her being a dental student, you know, not only is that stress, but they're in an environment, so she needs that high dosing of power immune system.
And again, it's still okay? I mean, if you can work a child going to grammar school and middle school, working them to the at least the OPC Plus is great, Aloe-Red is life, and the B12. I know is green. I have to take that separately, and I'm still learning on that one. I know it's great for me, but at least getting those others in there as soon as you can.
Absolutely, and we have many testimonies of college kids, high school to college, college into advanced college. They will tell you that just dosing with OPC gives them the cutting edge. They're able to recall, they're able to read and retain much more proficient with OPC.
And I know that you've said this in many other calls and because I've seen 3 questions so far about someone that's on meds or children that's on meds. You in no way say when they start these products to take them off their meds. You tell them to work with their physician while they're taking this, when they're getting better, for the physician to be able to notice that and start weaning them off those medications. Is that correct?
100% correct. And the neat thing about these nutritions is that, like Statera, which is liver toxic, or Concerta, which is brain toxic, at least those drugs, while those kids are on them, giving them good nutrition gives them the benefit of a much more insurable protection, you know, healthier. And
you were saying, I've seen 2 more questions come in about the magnesium, dealing with prescription drugs, about do these prescription drugs take away the magnesium, which makes it even worse, so we definitely need to replace that.
They do. Each of the drugs they use, all of the drugs they use for hyperactivity children, diminish the body of B12, folic acid, B1, B6, B12, as well as the magnesium. So it's very imperative that they do get replenished. Otherwise, side effects become multiplied and more exasperated.
Okay, again, the dosing one more time that Sonia was using. She's even asking here, should she increase her dose with her child on any of those?
I think that mothers know best, and doing so well, the dose seems to be just right. She is fully welcome. There's no toxicity in going up on Is Life to the other scoop or the other half of the scoop, and there's no problem in adding another Is Grape at the end of the day. It's okay.
Okay, well, that sounds good.